What's up, everybody? Unrested here. It is a scalding hot day here in Kobe, Japan, and I am inside once again because the cicada are too loud to record a video outside. And this is JFAQ, Japan's Frequently Asked Questions, the show I should have introduced at the very beginning of the video. I'm Unrested with the questions you requested. Today we're talking a bit about why does Japan want to change how they approach the military and wars. Now, unless you follow politics in Japan very closely, you may not know, Shinzo Abe, our PM, Prime Minister here in Japan, recently passed a bill changing how Japan can handle military situations. Now, politics get complex fast, and for the most part, I vaguely understand how this works. I don't have a full cognitive analysis of how the bill was passed, how it goes through, but from what I understand, and please correct me in the comments below with a simplistic layman's terms if you can, if I'm wrong, we can now assist America's military in some of their wars or conflicts, if you may, as well as defend in a more aggressive way parts of Japan that we believe are Japan. I should say that Japan believes is Japan, because I'm not really actually a Japanese citizen. I'm just a permanent resident, so I can't say we really, can I? So, why? Why is this happening? Why is this being changed to the bill? Well, if you didn't already know, the Self-Defense Force, the SDF as it's usually known, here in Japan, was the military set up after World War II finished. Japan signed a peace treaty that said pretty much they couldn't have a military, and if they did, it would only be a defense force, which pretty much means, like, unless someone literally comes onto Japan's land and starts attacking us here, we won't try to fight any sort of war. We won't actively go outside of Japan, seek out other countries, or invade other countries, or even decide to get into conflicts with other countries if we see something as being unright. So, for example, oftentimes America gets themselves into wars where they decide that one side is being unfair to the other side, and they try to be the world police and go over there and stop a conflict. Well, we can't do that. That Self-Defense Force is not supposed to be able to do that. They still can't do that as far as I know. But now we are able to assist in doing that, apparently. So if America does want to go over to another country and be like, we need to fight because they're stealing all the oil, they can be like, hey, Japan, you want to help? Japan can say, yes, it's okay. And America's pretty stoked on that. I think that's one of the main reasons that the bill was passed, why it was pushed through, was there was a lot of influence from America. Now, on top of that, you've got another situation going on right now with China. Unless you follow between China and Japan a lot as far as their constant conflicts and bickering with each other, and they're both being childish on both ends. China's being childish and Japan is being childish, and Korea sometimes throw themselves into this too, and they're being childish. There's a lot of angst and anger about World War II atrocities, which everyone is guilty, in my opinion. Everyone in the world is guilty when it comes to war. No one was super innocent and did absolutely nothing wrong in war. But both of these sides are angry at the other for not apologizing for certain wartime atrocities, which, if that's ever going to be solved, I'm not quite sure. It seems like China's constantly pushing for an apology for one, the rape of Nanking, which I've heard at some points that Japan did apologize for, but at the same time, they don't feel like they've fully apologized because they have a shrine set up to some of the soldiers who died in Nanking, and they continuously send politicians to go there and pray to this shrine. It's called Yasukuni Shrine. I'm sure you've probably heard about this before. It constantly causes conflict between China and Japan. On top of that, there's the problem with comfort women, and this is where Korea gets thrown into the whole shindig as well. The comfort women were women that pretty much Japanese soldiers raped and used as sex slaves during the war. Other countries are guilty of this too. Like, other countries did this all over the world. America has apologized to Japan to doing it to Japanese women during the war. And, I don't know the full details of how every country had their own different versions of comfort women, but during World War II, this did go on, and I believe it probably still goes on worse today as well. And you know, there's still really hardcore nationalists, like right-wing nationalists in Japan, who for some reason want to deny that this ever happened. They want to say, no, Japan never did that, or they don't want to deny it. They want to say, yeah, Japan did do that, and we needed to do that. It was necessary for our soldiers, which is even more fucked up. I mean, that's just uncalled for. There's no way you can defend mass rape. I mean, that's what that was. That was mass rape. So anyway, I'm getting off the main subject. I'm getting on to tangents of why these conflicts exist. So now China is constantly moving in on a lot of land around the world in general. They want to encroach on land in the Philippines, Taiwan, other Asian countries close to them, and that also includes a couple of little tiny islands close to Japan. And supposedly, and you know, I'm not an expert on all these different things, but after World War II, the signing of different land treaties put these three little tiny islands, and I mean they are just like dots on a map, within the borders of Japan. So according to a post-World War II treaty of a land agreement, Japan owns these islands, and recently I guess both sides realized there's like a lot of oil and fishing to be done around these islands. They can get a lot of natural resources out of them, and so now China's like, hey, I guess you guys didn't know, but these are our islands, and Japan's all like, whatever, man, we got somebody living there. Like there's like one tiny little guy living there, or like there's like a family that owns the islands. There's not a lot of actual like houses or any kind of residential or business type areas set up on this island. It's pretty much just nature. And they're fighting over these, and they've been fighting over them in the most immature manner possible, wasting tons of resources, fuel, flying jets over them, ships next to them, and it's just like as a show of like flexing, being like, yo, look, we can fly past this island anytime we want. And Japan's all like, oh no, you can't, we're gonna scramble our jets and show you that we don't care if you fly past that island. And they're just doing a show of arms. So now they've increased their military ability via this bill being passed, and now they could possibly launch some sort of attack if they wanted to defend this island, because this has increased their military ability. You know, I really hope it never comes to that, honestly. I think it is absolutely childish for both of these sides to be fighting over this island. I'm looking at this from an objective point of view. I'm not rooting for China, I'm not rooting for Japan. I'm not saying who owns the island, I'm not saying if they should split the islands. I'm just saying that what they should do is have a sit down with some sort of council that goes through historical records and look through each and every paper and have this sorted if it's really that important. Or they could stop being children over a tiny piece of land and come to some kind of agreement. I mean, it's just so pathetic. It's like finding any small thing to fight over. It reminds me of when my little kids both see a toy they want to play with at the same time, and instead of finding a toy that looks the same and just playing with a different version of the same toy, they just instead decide to fight over the same toy just for the sake of fighting. Anyway guys, that's a little bit of a rundown on the bill that was just passed. You might have seen a lot of actual protests in Japan over people being very angry that this bill is passed. For the most part, the Japanese people do not want to become a more aggressive or warfaring country. They do not want to go into wars. They do not want to help the American military. They're very much so against doing this. One man recently set himself on fire over a bridge to protest this, and I mean, there's been, you know, protests for a while now for this bill not to pass. You should have saw, I mean, it was the most expressive I've ever seen Japanese people be, that they did not want this bill to pass. There's a lot of people very unhappy with Shinzo Abe. His rating for his likes and dislikes have shot up, likes have gone down quite a bit. He's not really liked too much anymore, and probably not going to be able to continue on into his next term in office. Anyway, I hope I've explained that somewhat clearly. Until next time, I am unrested with the questions you requested, and this is JFAQ Japan's Frequently Asked Questions. Have a good one.